Welcome to Nightmare Story, where the scariest, most mysterious, and inexplicable stories await you every night. Turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and make sure you're not alone, because the story you're about to hear might haunt you forever.
My name is Alex. I'm 29 now. But this happened to me when I was 24. Living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment in Sacramento, California. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship and was eager for a fresh start. I worked remotely as a freelance graphic designer, which meant I spent most of my time alone at home. It was quiet, peaceful, and at first, exactly what I needed to recover emotionally. The apartment was on the ground floor of a quiet building, tucked behind some old oak trees. The windows faced a narrow alleyway and the back wall of a neighboring office building, which was usually deserted after 6 p.m. I liked the privacy. It felt like no one could see in. Like I was sealed away from the outside world. But I would soon realize that wasn't exactly true. One Thursday night, I was working late on a deadline. It was past midnight, and I had lo-fi music playing softly in the background while I sketched on my tablet. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement outside the window. I looked up, expecting maybe a raccoon or a stray cat, but instead, I saw a figure, a man, standing at the edge of the alley, barely illuminated by the streetlight. He was facing my window, motionless. His silhouette was long and thin, and though his face was shadowed, something about his posture unnerved me. My heart skipped. I stared at him, waiting for him to move or walk away, but he didn't. He just stood there. I turned off the music and backed away slowly, unsure of what to do. After a minute or two of silence, I peeked through the blinds again. He was gone. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just a drunk who wandered in off the main street. But that night was only the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, the visits continued. Almost every night, I would catch glimpses of him at different spots outside my window or near the alley. Sometimes he was farther back, sometimes uncomfortably close. Once, he stood directly in front of my window with his hands in his pockets, his head tilted slightly to the side, just staring. There was never any sign of aggression, but the consistency, the silence, it got under my skin. I called the building manager. They promised to install a motion sensor light, which they did, but it didn't deter him. One night, I heard it click on at 3:17 a.m., and when I looked through the blinds, he was standing under it, completely still, staring up at the window as the light buzzed softly above him. His presence was deliberate, as though he was letting me know he saw me. I contacted the police twice. Both times. By the time they arrived, the man was gone. They couldn't do much without an actual threat or evidence. They advised me to keep my doors locked and maybe install a camera. I ordered a basic security camera online and set it up on the inside, facing the alley. The first 2 nights, I caught nothing, but on the third night, the camera alerted me at 2:43 a.m. I checked the feed and saw the man standing by the window. He wasn't just standing, he was slowly running his hand along the glass. The footage chilled me to the core. I saved it and gave it to the police. They said they would look into it. I wasn't reassured. I started sleeping with a baseball bat beside the bed and barely slept at all. I began obsessively checking the camera feed, watching for any signs of movement. My paranoia intensified. I started hearing phantom tapping noises that would wake me up, only to find nothing there. Then things escalated. One night, I came home from a late grocery run and found a sticky note on my front door. It just said, "Nice art. You should lock your back window." My stomach dropped. I rushed inside and checked the back window. It was slightly ajar. I hadn't opened it. I always kept it locked. That meant someone had been inside, or was trying to get in. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights off, waiting. At around 2:30 a.m., I heard rustling outside. My heart pounded as I crept toward the window. The man was there again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Another figure stood behind him, shorter, broader, both of them staring silently up at the apartment. I called 911 immediately and whispered what was happening. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me. I could hear subtle movements near the window. Then came the tapping, slow, deliberate tapping on the glass. When the police arrived, both men were gone. No footprints. No trace of anything. I showed them the footage again. The officers looked concerned. One pulled me aside and said, "We've had a few incidents like this around here lately. Nothing conclusive. But you might want to consider staying somewhere else for a bit." I packed a bag and stayed with a friend across town. For 3 days. I tried to pretend everything was fine. But when I returned to check on the apartment, I found another note slipped under the door. "Thought you'd be back sooner." That was it for me. I broke my lease, paid the penalty, and moved out. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks later, I got a message from a former neighbor. She said someone had been spotted behind the building late at night, near what used to be my window. Another resident reported hearing footsteps in the hallway after midnight, even though the building was supposed to be locked. I had nightmares for weeks. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, certain that I'd heard tapping on my new window, even though I lived 3 floors up now. Sometimes I'd get a sense of being watched while walking home from the gym or running errands. Once, I spotted a man who looked eerily similar leaning against a tree across from my office window. I never proved it was him. I never saw his face clearly enough. But I know what I felt. Then, about 2 months after I had moved, I found something that made my skin crawl. My new apartment complex had a shared basement with laundry machines. One night, while doing laundry, I noticed a small piece of paper taped to the door of the dryer I was using. It said, in the same handwriting from the earlier notes, "I missed you." I dropped everything and ran upstairs. I filed another report with the police, who said they would follow up, but again, without solid proof or identification, there was little they could do. To this day, I still double-check every lock. I installed new cameras, both inside and outside. I never leave my windows open at night. And every time I hear a tapping sound, no matter how faint, I stop and listen. Because I'm afraid one night, I'll look up, and he'll be there again.
Thank you for listening to this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and return every night to Nightmare Story for more true horror stories. See you next time.